Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's WNBA betting podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Maria Marino. Very excited that our own Jay Money is making his season debut on this special episode. Jay, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to be on here. Love talking some WNBA, any basketball. I love talking with you, Maria. So ready to get to it.
Back at you. Okay, so the reason why this is kind of a unique episode is schedule is a little funky leading up to the Olympic break for the WNBA. We have one game later tonight at 10 Eastern, and that is the Lynx visiting the Sparks. But then we have a whole bunch of these early tip-off games Wednesday starting at like 11 a.m. Eastern, which I know you were messaging me on the side, Jay, and you're like, what is with these early tip-offs? But if you've been following the W for a few years, you know that they do these like summer camp games. I guess they like to, appeal to the children. So they get these kids, coming out with these early tip-off times. It's a little odd, but we figured, hey, if we're going to do an episode, let's pack as many games as we can into that. So we're going to start by just quickly breaking down Lynx Sparks. So if you are listening here on Tuesday, you can probably figure out some things you want to bet. And then also, if you just decide you're listening Wednesday morning, we're going to have everything all ready for you as you're waking up so you can start figuring out how you want to bet the Wednesday games. So, all right, let's get right into it. And we're going to start, like I said, Lynx visiting the Sparks. So this opened with the Lynx being favored by 5.5. I'm seeing as low as 3.5 right now. You'll probably find it the Lynx as a 4-point favorite. And this is an interesting one. They have actually lost 3 in a row against the spread. So, Jay, I was actually on your YouTube show last week, and you called this that New York was going to get their revenge against Minnesota. So they lost last week to Minnesota, to New York, and then Connecticut as well. They did beat Washington on Saturday at home. They are 15-6 straight up, 13-8 against the spread. So those, when I say 3 in a row, those were against the spread losses. And the big story here is Napheesa Collier. She's got plantar fasciitis in her left foot, and she likely won't return before the Olympic break. Meanwhile, the Sparks have been pretty feisty. They did lose to Phoenix on Sunday at home. This right after the big upset over Vegas on Friday. But what do you make of this game?
Yeah, so first I want to say that I think that Napheesa Collier has been like an MVP caliber player this year. I know that Asia Wilson gets all the hype. I think she's won a couple MVPs already. Her odds are steadily climbing as well. But I'm one of the guys I like to spread the love. I think it should be out of Alyssa Thomas or Collier this year to win MVP. That's just me personally, especially if one of those teams finish with a better record than the Aces as well. So I'm still rooting for that. But I really do think Collier is an MVP. Like the way that the Lynx have been playing and exceeded expectations, and the way Collier's meant to the team, I think that she should be in the running for MVP, and that's the reason why they've looked so different without her as well, in my opinion here. So they're 4-0 to the under as well without Collier out there. So the last 4 games without Collier out there, all 4 games have went under. They're obviously missing her offense. This is a team that plays really great defense as well, so they're always going to be a great under look, and then they're missing their best offensive player. So I think we could possibly see another under here tonight. I know it opened up at 157.5, ticked down to like 156.5, up to like 158, but I still think this is an under spot, mainly because the Sparks aren't the best offensive team as well. So I think that this will be a little bit of a defensive game, but I do think that the Lynx have enough to beat the Sparks even without Collier in this particular spot. So I would lean towards the Lynx here as well. This line is going down. We know no Collier, but I still think they have enough to get it done over the Sparks, who, in my opinion, are one of the worst teams in the WNBA. I know that they can be feisty with Wnba out there. They have some nice young pieces as well, but we can't forget Lexi Brown is out, and Brink as well. 2 of their better players. So I think the under is the better play, but I still think the Lynx come out here and get the win in this particular game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Lynx are overall just way more motivated. Both teams are well coached, but Cheryl Reeve has a lot more reason to really game plan for a win here, because look, the Lynx they're trying to contend for a championship this year, whereas the Sparks are expecting not to make the playoffs. So I think it can be a little tricky sometimes when you have a team with some high performers like Adira Kahambi or what have you, but you're like, wait, do I want to really bet their overs in this spot? As far as the spread is concerned, when I saw Lynx -5.5, I didn't want anything to do with that, even though I think the Lynx will win, just because without Nafisa, etc., I'm just like, I don't really feel good about betting them right now. If you can find 3.5, I think that's kind of intriguing. I mean, obviously people were probably betting the Sparks, and now this line has moved. So, I mean, 3.5 is very, very different in terms of, the Lynx actually winning by that margin. But I will say this. I was peeping some props because
Okay.
I think that when you have a player like Nafisa Collier, who, like, to your point, is playing like an MVP, scoring a ton, rebounding a ton, her absence is definitely going to affect a lot of stats for a lot of other players. So I was perusing a bunch of different things, and I actually like Rakia Jackson over 5.5 rebounds. I thought this was interesting and like a good value. It's going to be a competitive game, like I said, without Nafisa and Rakia. She's just been getting a lot more burn. As long as there's not a blowout, which I don't think this will be, I noticed that she's averaging just under 28 minutes in her last 10 games, coming off a career high 22. She scored in double figures actually in her last 4. So Kurt Miller just seems to be like trying to open her up and just let her go. She's hit 6 rebounds in 3 of 4. Last game against Minnesota on June 14th, she had 19 points, 10 boards, 3 of those offensive, which I think is key once again without Collier. So I actually sprinkled a little bit on her odds to get a double-double. I got it around, I think it was plus 1,400 the last that I checked. So I figured I'll throw a couple bucks on that. So that was just one thing that I liked in the game, but I'm really curious just who's going to be feasting without Nafisa in there. Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
no, I'm with you. Yeah, I like the look. I like how you kind of dig out those props because you kind of hit them like whether you bet or not. But even like when you're leaning or just talking some out, we know you came on my show a couple times. Those
Yeah.
props hit at a high rate, Maria. So you might have to just
Oh,
start going. You might have to start going with and then just sprinkle a little bit something on them.
yeah.
But it's crazy us talking this game. So I do like the under in this game. Like I say, the Lynx are 4-0 to under. But I'm starting to talk myself into the Lynx here. I think the Sparks. I know that they've been playing well and can play some teams really tight, but the Lynx, I mean, they're starting to. It's like one thing I just say real quick. Like when you're playing without your star player, you start to get used to playing without them, and I just think
True.
these two teams are on a different level. Like the Lynx are a bottom. The Lynx are like a top 3, top 4 team in the WNBA. The Sparks are, if they're not the worst, then they're like right behind the Mystics in my opinion. So I think the Lynx can, especially with the spread going down as well. I think they get everybody here, and I think they win this game by double digits. So I'm actually really starting to talk myself
Ooh.
into the Lynx in this game. This is like they can't lose these type of games if they're serious about making a lone playoff push and things like that. So I think Lynx -4 is a really good play here. I think they win this game by double digits.
Wow. See, this is why it's good to talk these things out, right? Because you start to get ideas and you start to lean more one way or the other as we discuss it. And also, I think to your point, like, even though Nafisa's been playing so well, it's not like an Asia situation where you feel like the offense is so reliant on one player. Like, they do spread it
Mhm.
around. And because they are well coached and because they have played a couple games without her now, like, Cheryl knows how to use her personnel. And so I'm totally with you there. All right. So that's one game. We'll try to rip through the other games for Wednesday, like pretty efficiently here since we got a lot going on. But let's turn our attention to 11 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Very early, a little breakfast and buckets, and watching some ball at 11 a.m. Eastern. So Liberty visiting the Sun. Libs favored by 2.5. They are 17-4 straight up, only 8-13 against the spread. Coming off Saturday's loss at Indiana, they were favored by 10.5 in that game. I checked what their record is after a loss this season. They are 3-1 straight up, but oddly 0-4 against the spread, which gives me a little bit of pause here because I originally, when I saw this, I like the Liberty because they've just taken care of Connecticut in recent memory. First of all, they beat them 82-75 back on June 8th. And then I went and looked at the records, including that game, and then all of last season. New York is 8-1 straight up against Connecticut, only 5-4 against the spread against Connecticut. So I think this is interesting. Like I feel like the Liberty are going to be super eager to erase that bad loss against Indiana on the road, but it is the Sun. They are at home. They are hungry. What do you think about this one?
So I usually never really do this, and these props are really hard to hit as well, but there is something out there that's called like a double result or like a halftime, full time. So there's something I like in this game that's plus 500, and you can play it however you like. I do think the Liberty win this game. As you mentioned, they've beaten them both times this year. They've beaten them 5 times in a row. I believe they swept them in the playoffs last year as well.
They lost one in the playoffs.
They lost one of them?
I think it was.
Okay, you're right. It was the first game.
Yep, correct. So it was
the first game. So they won the last 3.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because we know that Brianna Jones had got she was basically out, so it was a big matchup advantage for the Liberty there. But they won 9 of the last 10. But I said all that to say the Sun, these two teams are going neck and neck this year. I do think the Liberty are. I mean, I'm just going to go and say it's just my opinion. I think they're the best team in the WNBA, but they are coming off of a loss as well. Liberty winning the championship. First off, Maria, they're winning a championship, but that's probably a sharp take there. A lot of people probably won't like that, but that's what I think. But regardless of that, I think the Sun, with them having double revenge, and I've noticed something different in them, that they're really like going for a championship this year. I don't think they're going to get it, but I think this is a big game for the Sun. I think they come out and cover this first half and start the game early. I think early times like benefit the home teams, but I do think when it's all said and done over the full 40 minutes of the game, I think the better team wins this game. So it's a really good prop out there. You can get it at plus 500. The Sun, they have to be up. They have to be leading after the end of the first half, and then the Liberty have to win as well. The game can't go into overtime or anything like that. Sun have to be up by 1 or more points at the end of the half, and then the Liberty have to win the game in regular time, and that plus 500 will hit. That's something that I did just sprinkle on while we're on the show at plus 500. Sun, first half, Liberty full game. That's basically double result, basically halftime, full time. If you like, you could just play Sun first half, or you could just play Liberty full game, but that's something that I like in this game quite a bit.
I love the look. So interestingly, like early in the season, Liberty had this trend where they were playing really, really well in the first quarter. Like they were blowing people out in the first quarter. I feel like recently, I don't have the exact numbers, but just from what I've been watching, it doesn't feel like that way anymore. Like they came out so flat against Indiana the other day. I remember not the actually, I don't even remember. I was at, as you know, I was at the New York Minnesota game at Barclays Center when New York won. I was there. Truth be told, I don't really remember what happened in the first half of that game.
They lost the first quarter. They lost
there you
it.
go.
They were down by 2. Yep, they were down by 2.
Thank you. See, look at you. You have all you
3 in a row. 3 in a row, Maria. They've lost 3 straight first quarters in a row.
There you go. Because I was going to say the game before that, I know they were playing Atlanta at home and they looked like garbage in the first quarter. So I don't know what's shifted. We were talking last week about how Sabrina was dealing with an illness. Like she lost her voice. And I'll say this, Sabrina Ionescu seems to be the catalyst for the Liberty getting things going. Like I think that it may be part of why they got off to rough starts those couple games, because she wasn't 100%, and she really brings the energy, I think, to that team. Sometimes Brianna Stewart, it's looking like it's taking her time to get going in these games. Like for whatever reason, sometimes she starts out slow and then she'll turn it on in the second half when she realizes, oh shit, like they need me. So that's been going on. Huh?
She's old, Maria.
Maybe. She's not that old, my goodness. But and then, Jonquel Jones, I think, is a really big key too. But yet again, she needs the guards to set her up. So it's not like, I really think Sabrina is kind of the key to like just their offense running smoothly. So I say all that to say I agree with you that I don't trust the Liberty in the first half the way I was earlier in the season. And, when you think about an 11 a.m. Eastern tip-off, so, I mean, the Liberty are spending the night, I assume, in, Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. It's like, it's awkward, right? Like, it's 11 a.m. No one likes to play. But then again, I guess the Sun, they have to deal with that too a little bit. But so I might hesitate there. I do lean the Liberty here to bounce back just because of the way they've owned Connecticut and because they're coming off of that Indiana loss. And I think Sab is probably more healthy. But I haven't bet it quite yet because I'm just like 11 a.m. man. It just seems like it could be some ugly. It could be some ugly basketball. But that's why I actually do like your look of Sun first half, Liberty full game. All right, let's keep it moving here. And next game we want to talk about is at noon Eastern on NBA TV on Wednesday. That's the Mystics visiting the Fever. Fever are favored by -5.5. And when I saw this line at first, I thought, this feels a little high just because I don't think the Fever, I don't know that they've earned that respect quite yet. But let's break this down a little bit because they are 9-13 straight up, 12-10 against the spread. As mentioned, beat New York on Saturday. They were double-digit dogs. Caitlin Clark had probably her best game of the season, first rookie to record a triple-double. And the Fever have won 5 straight at home. So I find that interesting. They're definitely getting way more comfortable playing together, playing in front of those sellout crowds that are really behind them. The Mystics, 5-17 straight up, 14-7-1 ATS. They play competitive games. Even though they don't win a lot of them, they are in a lot of these games. They lost to Minnesota the other day, but they did still cover. And this is without Shakira Austin, without Brittany Sykes, without Carly Samuelson. It doesn't seem to matter. They seem to be competing. So in the season series, though, the Fever are 2-0, 1-1 against the spread. So they beat them by just 2 the first time out. Second time out, they beat them by 7 when the spread was 5. This was the last time, though, that Washington didn't cover. So they lost. They lost to Indiana, like I said, by 7. Spread was 5. Ever since then, they are 6-1 against the spread. So it's like, I don't know. They compete. Any thoughts on the side, even though I'm not sure you're betting it, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I can get why there's a little hesitation here with the Fever. Obviously, you worry about them as well, like coming off of a huge win versus what I think the best team in the WNBA, coming off a huge win, and now there was a comeback win as well. They were down 5 late in that game, and then before you know it, they have the lead. It's just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But the Fever have actually covered 7 of their last 9 games as well. So both of these teams have been covering machines. They're 7-2 against the spread last 9. The Mystics are 8-2 against the spread in their last 10, which they are usually getting a boatload of points. That's the thing about them. But in my opinion, if the Fever are going to make the playoffs, which I do think they are, I think that they have to win these type of games. I don't know about laying the 5.5. It could be a close game, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Like, it's Fever or nothing for me in this particular spot. Like you said, they already beat them twice already this year. One of the games was a 2-point win, and they didn't cover the spread on a 3.5. But in their last game, they did end up winning by 7, which was still close to the spread as well. So I'm not messing with the spread in this one. I do think this is another over game. The Mystics have really picked up their pace. I know that they're only 1-3 to the overs in their last few games, but they were playing some tough defensive teams as well. Going up against Minnesota, they went over versus Vegas. They went versus the Sparks, which is a under type of team as well. And then another game versus Vegas where they only scored 77 points. So if they could score 77 versus Vegas, I definitely think that they can put up probably another 77 or 80 points here in this one. And I think this one might sneak over the total in this particular game. And that letdown for the Fever won't come offensively. It'll likely come on the defensive end. So I lean towards the Fever to get the win, but I look towards the over in this game. I think the Fever score some points, and they probably give up some points in this one. I think this one goes over, and I definitely think the Fever get the job done in this one as far as winning.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm with you. It's Fever or nothing for me. Obviously, the Fever have become sort of synonymous with games going over because they are a fast-paced team. You know, Caitlin Clark's trying to push the pace. She's getting the ball down the floor, and now uh, her and her teammates are just gelling so much more. They're ready for those passes. It was such a fun game to watch the other day on Saturday. Like you said, I don't know how the Liberty let that one get away. Kind of nuts, but the Fever, they really made good plays down the stretch. So I could see the over happening, and I'll say this too. You know, the game that they only won by 2, that was really still in the very beginning stages of the season when the schedule was awful for the Fever. They weren't really gelling yet. You know, Caitlin was struggling a little bit, definitely turning the ball over more than she is now. So they're a much different team now. And I agree with you. Like, they need to win these types of games in order to make the playoffs, which they have been clear that they're trying to do. They're in the playoff picture currently. They're playing well at home. They just can't let this one. They can't let this one get away. And again, we're talking about a noon Eastern tip, which I think is 11 a.m. for them over in Indiana. I'm not the best with my time zones, but so it's still an early game, but they are at home. So I do lean for them to take care of things. So so we got a couple of strong leans there on the Fever and the over. But let's keep it rolling here. Another noon Eastern tip, Dream visiting the Sky. Sky laying 6.5. And again, another time I'm looking and I'm like, wait, because like the Fever and the Sky are in very similar positions, right? They're not two of the best teams, but they are both in the playoff picture. They are both feisty and they are both playing bad teams. Dream, bad team. So, again, I wouldn't touch the Dream here. They have lost 4 straight. You and I talked on your show about how much better they look with Jordan Canada at point guard. Well, she hurt her hand, unfortunately. So she played only 4 games. Now she's out until at least the Olympic break. They're still without Ryan Howard. However, they have been competitive. They're 4-1 ATS in their last 5 games. Chicago, meanwhile, 8-12, both straight up and against the spread. So the games that they win, they tend to cover, which I think is interesting. They're coming off one big win on the road at Seattle and then a loss on the road at Seattle. As everyone probably knows by now, Angel Reese broke Candace Parker's record. She has 13 straight double-doubles. You think she continues to roll here, Jay?
I mean, I don't see who's going to stop her. It's not that Tina Charles is a bad defender. She's just a little bit older. And when I say older, I'm like, once you start to get up into like 32, 33 range and you're playing up against youngsters that are like 23, 24, like you're kind of old out there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's all I was kind of saying
She's
about Breonna
older than
Stewart. But
Stewie, just for context, since you said
exactly,
Stewie's old.
exactly. Yeah, but I'm just saying she's up there. I mean, once you get past the 31, 32,
We're
man, you
talking
start to
basketball years. It's like
yeah,
dog
yeah.
years, basketball years.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this game. I agree. There's a few too many points for me to lay with the Sky. I don't really want parts of the Dream because if Jordan Kendall was in this game, I'd be taking the 6.5. I'll tell you that right now. I'd be going heavy on it. But they played the Sun kind of tough. Like if you're the Dream, you can't be losing to the Dallas Wings out there. They still covered the spread. But I really don't know how to gauge the Chicago Sky because they're not a bad team. I do think they're better than their record suggests, but they also can show their youth some of the times as well. So both of these teams are really kind of teetering on like on that last playoff spot. This is a huge game for whichever team wants to make the playoffs, in my opinion. So obviously, I'll tell you right now, with Ryan Howard in there, if they even with no Jordan Canada, Ryan Howard in there, me personally, I do think that the Dream are better than the Sky. That's just my opinion. I bet them earlier this year versus the Sky when they had Ryan Howard. It was a really nice win for me. The last game, obviously, with no Howard, they end up losing that one. But I'm not laying 6 points here with the Sky. I said all that to say that it's a few too many points for me to lay. I can see this game going down to the wire. I'd have to look towards taking the points, but I don't want to bet on Atlanta without Jordan Canada or Ryan Howard. I can't do it.
Right. Well, I think if you add Ryan Howard in there, you're probably looking at, okay, that's the best player on the floor. And I know how great Angel's been playing. I know how great Kennedy Carter's been playing. It would be probably between Kennedy and Ryan, but like you're throwing in a major difference maker. But obviously she is not there.
Mhm.
And you talked about the last time these two teams played, in which Chicago did win by 8. That was on July 2nd, so last week. And in terms of Tina Charles, like, to me, what matters is, and I'm looking at this from a bit of a prop perspective too, because I was definitely peeping her props, like the inconsistency with the minutes sometimes with her. Like, she'll play great when she's in, but sometimes I think that Tanisha Wright is like trying to figure out the right rotation. Sometimes she pulls her. Why are you shaking your head?
I'm just saying, I really feel like the dream, like before Ryan Howard got injured, I really think they need a new coach because I don't think the coach is maximizing this team. So it's just something that, like, I mean, I don't think she's a bad coach. I just don't think I think her time is up in Atlanta. In my, that's just me. I
Yeah.
feel like the dream for a few years have really have been they've underachieved in my opinion. So I feel like if they had the right coach in there that knew how to really connect with the players, I think the dream should be a lot better than what they've
Yeah.
shown, in my opinion.
I think you make a valid point. They certainly kind of like fell apart last season. And now, look, of course, they have had some injuries, but still, they do seem sometimes like they're just like don't know what the answer is, and that's why I decided I'm staying away from Tina here. But both Reese and Cardoso had great games last time out. Uh, the rebounding numbers for Reese have gotten so inflated. I think she's at 12 and a half boards, which if you tell me she's going over, like, I believe you at this point. Like, she had 19 rebounds against Atlanta last week, which is freaking crazy. And, Camilla Cardoso, I think, also had double digit rebounds in that game. But I still feel a little funny. To me, it's just a little like over 12 and a half boards is a little bit of a stretch for me personally. But when I look at Cardoso, she's at 8.5 rebounds. And you could also get her at 10 plus rebounds at like plus 140, seeing the 8.5 at like minus 108. But in her last 10 games, she has hit 10 plus in half of them. She's gone over 8.5 in 6 of them. And she's had 8 3 times. So she's right there. I think the 8.5 is probably I think the line is probably spot on, but I am tempted to go with her rebounding over here, considering how well she played against them the last time, that I do think the Sky should win this game. I do think those two, Camilla Cardoso and Angel Reese, are going to be controlling the glass. I trust her rebounding more so than I do the scoring. So that was one prop that I was looking at here. And well, first of all, any reaction to that?
I'd like to know what's up with Parker Tyus because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she was out the last game with like some type of foot injury. If I'm not mistaken, it was either the last game or the one before that. I know that she was kind of banged up. That could really mean a lot as far as like rebounds for like Angel Reese or someone like that because obviously they don't have a ton of bigs out there. Yeah, she was out the last game versus the Sun, and they just kind of snuck in there and covered that spread. But I just want to say one thing about Angel Reese. She's playing really nice, but after finally breaking the record, do we get a little bit of a letdown here,
Oh,
or she may not possibly get a double here? We don't know if they could be the rebounds or the points, but I'm just saying, like after you finally break that record, things are
yeah.
a little different after that. It's just my opinion.
Very interesting. Well, I'm trying to see if I can find the Dream injury report right now. I'm not seeing it quite yet. I did not realize
Yeah,
Cheyenne Parker Tyus may have missed some time,
she
but
was out last game. Yeah,
okay. But
she could be
pretty
back.
sure I'm pretty sure she played though in the game against Atlanta, or I'm sorry, against Chicago last week,
Hmm.
um, when those two still went off.
Yeah, she
So
did. She did play in
yeah,
that game.
hopefully not. I don't think it'll have too much of an impact. Oh yeah, she played. Yeah, she played 21 minutes. She had 11 points, 6 rebounds. So definitely, if she's out or questionable, like for sure, my lean on those players, particularly Cardoso, would definitely go up. All right, so I think that pretty much sums it up for that game. Lean in the sky. I'm still a little hesitant about 6.5. Oh, the one other point I was going to say, like, I don't think this line is going to move much because the Sky, I think they're a little overvalued right now because Reese is so popular. People know her. They want to bet her. They want to bet the double doubles, like all these things that like, and no one's going to bet on the Dream. Like, unless you're like pretty, I don't know, unless you're a little bit
Contrarian.
crazy. Yeah. You're not really betting the Dream. So this, I feel like the books can get away with keeping the Sky at 6.5, like rather than, oh, well, like it's not going to move down. So that's another thing that gives me a little bit of pause with the line, just because I think that they can lay that many with the Sky, if that makes sense, the books, because like no one's betting the Dream. I don't know. That's just that's my inclination. I don't have data to back that up at the moment, but that's how I feel. All right. Now we can move on. Thanks so much for hanging with us, everybody. We got 2 more games. This is a beast of an episode, but we're going to roll through these last couple ones pretty quick here. So it's the Aces visiting the Storm, 3 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Aces, since Chelsea Gray came back June 19th, they are 7-1 straight up, 6-2 against the spread. June 19th was also the last time the Storm and Aces played. So Aces won by 11 at home. Prior to that, they had lost to Seattle on the road, 78-65. That was on June 7th. Now the Storm, they're another one. They win the games that they cover. They're 14-7 straight up and against the spread. They're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6. So as I mentioned, they got beat by Chicago Friday, got them back on Sunday. They are also 8-3 ATS at home this season, while the Aces are 3-5 ATS on the road. And that includes 2 losses with Gray in the lineup. So I do think that's significant. I do think that Storm have been playing great at home. Aces have been playing not their best basketball on the road. What do you think?
I think the spot sets up well for the Storm. I do think the Aces are the better team. I'll tell you that. And this 4.5 does seem kind of low, but the spot sets up well for the Storm for the simple fact that the Aces haven't been playing well on road as far as covering the spread. They're only 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 road games, and they just lost to the Sparks on the road as well. I know that was a back-to-back, but that should never happen in my opinion. That should never happen. But it was
that's the Sparks of Derek Hamby, who's
she always pissed. Yeah, she goes crazy. She doesn't care if it's preseason. She's like, oh, the Aces on the team. All right, let me get my superpowers here. But this is the Storm's 7th straight home game. That's why, and they hadn't had to travel anywhere, so they're comfortable at the house. They're 5-1 straight up and against the spread last 6 games at the house as well. So they've been balling. They're playing well. I do think that they can match up well with the Aces, in my opinion. So only thing I like about the Storm, sometimes they can be inconsistent. Like even that game versus the Sky, you just lost to them. And then you come back the next game and you were down by double digits before that second half and you come back. But you see like Jekyll and Hyde. Yes. We get down 10 in the revenge spot at the house, but then we can open the third quarter on a 15-4 run and just smack them up. You know what I'm saying? So the Storm they're just one of those type of fickle teams where you never know what you're going to get from them. I wouldn't be surprised if the Aces won again by 7 or 8 points. And I also wouldn't be surprised if the Storm won the game outright. So I'm staying off of it. If I had to bet it, I'd take the Storm here plus the 4.5, and the line is going their way as well. So Storm or nothing for me here, but it's just one of those where I could see it going either way. I got to stay off of this one.
Yeah, I again agree with you. I do lean the Storm plus the points because, as you mentioned, they are in this crazy schedule stretch of playing however many games at home. I've been ranting about the schedule is just nuts this season. So make sure for every team you are checking, if they're on some weird long road stretch, home stretch, whatever. Make sure you look at that. But they are comfortable at home. They have the confidence that they have beaten the Aces at least one time this season. The Aces, they can certainly turn it on. Mm-hmm. But I do feel confident. Like, I think Jewel Lloyd is kind of the Storm player that has been a little streaky. Like sometimes she's just got it cooking and she is going off and no one and nothing can stop her. And then other times she'll go cold. But it does give me some confidence that like, okay, they were down big to the sky and they made adjustments. And in the second half, they came out and they took care of business. So I think this could be a competitive game. I'm with you. I lean the Storm here. All right. And one more to get to. 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Wings at Mercury. Mercury laying 8.5. Wings got pummeled by Vegas on Sunday. They are not good, in case you didn't know. Just like I labeled the Dream, not good. 5-17 straight up, 7-15 against the spread. Mercury, 11-10 straight up, 12-8 against the spread. Obviously, they are just above a 500 team, but they have been, I think, better since they got Brittany Griner back. I mean, I think that's huge for them. They're coming off back-to-back wins, albeit against LA and against Dallas. So they just beat Dallas last Wednesday, 104-96. Kalia Copper had 34. So it's Phoenix 2-1 straight up against the spread against Dallas this season. But again, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing the Mercury and I'm like 8.5.
You said it. It's a few too many points, Maria. Because I believe it was at 9. I think it opened at 9, and I feel the same way. I'm just like, I don't really want to bet the Wings here, but
no, I would never.
This is too many points for the Mercury to be laying, in my opinion. Now, I love Kalia Copper. I love her. And when is Brittany Griner, when is her partner going to have the baby as well? Because that's why she's been questionable with personal the past couple games. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's been teetering on happening. We never know. They are at the house. And like I just feel like one of these games, Brittany Griner is going to be out in this one. But the Mercury, they're supposed to be a lot better than this year. Obviously, with signing Natasha Cloud, obviously with getting Kalia Copper over there, who I think is I think she's a top, I don't know, maybe top 7, top 8 player in the WNBA. I don't know, definitely top 10. I love Kalia Copper. I mean, she's a dog out there.
Her.
Great two-way player, offense and defense. So I feel like if you can contain Kalia Copper and hold her to 25 points or less, that's your pathway for the Wings to cover the spread. They're not going to win this game, but for them to at least stay within 8 points, you have to contain Kalia Copper and make sure no one else goes bunkers, because I think outside of her, the Mercury don't really have a ton. I mean, they still got some great like bench players, but oh man. I do think Kalani Brown and McCowan can kind of neutralize Griner if she plays, but I really don't want to bet on the Wings. They've burnt me sometimes this year. Man.
I said before, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but I have, one of my mantras is just on principle, I don't bet on the Wings.
That's probably good.
I mean, at least this season, I think they'll understand considering, but they picked up Odyssey Sims.
Yeah.
She's been balling. She had 25 points in the last game at Vegas, even though they still got crushed. So I think that's they did. So I think that's something interesting to look at. I don't know, as we stand here now, I don't think we have props on this game, but I would be curious to see if any lines are out there for Odyssey Sims points, because I still think that she's like kind of flying under the radar a little bit. So definitely take that into account. So, I mean, even though they blew them out last Wednesday, I still think Dallas they're going to compete. Phoenix they're just a little bit unreliable too. So I don't love either side here. I am curious if this line moves a little bit, like if we get a little bit of a more favorable number, I would consider betting the Mercury here. All right. Any closing thoughts, Jay?
No, that's it for me. I just want to say I don't think it was necessarily a blowout. That was actually a close game last Wednesday.
You're right.
The Wings, Mercury, that game was a little bit closer, and they kind of pulled away at the end. Natasha Howard had 36 points. Rike had 26.
Yeah.
They actually kind of like almost like held with them there. So I think if Brittany Griner's out, I might have to like bet the Wings. Like, oh man, it pains me. It pains me to say it. But
you're totally right. I was not doing the proper math. I saw 104. I saw that Phoenix scored 104, and I guess that triggered in my mind that it was a blowout, but really they only they only won by 8 points. So yeah, fair enough. And I mean, that shows you too, like, wasn't a lot of defense going on, and the Wings, for all their issues, they still put up 96 points in that game. So yeah, this one's tough. It might, Wings plus the points might be the play, but I'm not gonna play it. So if you want to play it, if you want to bet on the Wings, go for it. I'm out. All right. We've talked quite a bit. J Money, I appreciate you joining me for this sort of marathon episode with all these crazy summer camp games. Hopefully, if you're listening, you got some ideas for things that you would like to bet. Also, make sure you check out the Action app. Follow J Money on there. Follow him on X as well. You can see if he ends up betting anything. I'll be posting if I bet anything in the app. And keep in mind, too, we're going to be back Friday with more best bets. But follow the pod so that you know when we drop episodes, because the schedule is like weird over the next week or so leading into the Olympics. So definitely keep an eye out on the feed. Thank you again for listening to Buckets, presented by BetMGM. Let's get buckets.